Money is the root of all evil. The Frances Newton murder story. Death by lethal injection. On September 14, 2005, in Huntsville, Texas, Frances Elaine Newton, 40, was put to death by lethal injection for the murder of her husband and children in order to collect insurance money. On March 18, 1987, Newton, then 21 years old, purchased $50,000 in life insurance policies for her daughter Farah, then 21 months old, and her husband Adrian, then 23 years old. She already had a policy in place for her son Alton, who was 7. The Newtons were experiencing marital issues at the time. Despite sharing a home, they were both dating other people. Sterling Newton, Adrian's brother, also occupied their apartment. It was between 5:30 and 6 p.m. on April 7, 1987, Sterling Newton returned home. Frances Newton drove up in a car between 7 o'clock and 7:30 p.m. to her cousin Sandra Nelms' house. Nelms was invited to visit Newton at her home by Newton. Adrian's friend Alphonse Harrison had spotted him earlier in the day, and they decided to meet up that night. In the late evening, between 7 and 7:15, Harrison called the residence. Frances picked up the phone. Frances put Harrison on hold when he requested to speak with Adrian and then left him there. Nelms observed Newton take a blue bag from her car and place it inside the residence adjacent to Nelms before they left. The house belonged to Newton's parents and was vacant. After that, they proceeded to Newton's home. When they arrived, they discovered Newton's dead husband and 2 kids. Newton dialed 911 right away. R.W. Ricks, a Harris County Sheriff's officer, was sent to the apartment building at 8:27 p.m. When Ricks arrived, Newton and Nelms were already there. Ricks discovered the bodies of Adrian, Alton, and Farah Newton inside Newton's apartment. Adrian was lying on a couch with a head wound. Each of the 2 kids had been shot in the chest and was lying in bed. No evidence of a forced entrance or struggle was discovered by Deputy Ricks. Later that night, Nelms took a homicide detective to the abandoned house and informed him about the blue bag. Inside the house, he discovered a blue bag containing a .25 caliber semi-automatic weapon. The weapon was found to belong to Michael Mouton, who admitted to authorities that he had lent it to his cousin Jeffrey Frelau 5 or 6 months prior. Frelau recognized the revolver when the police displayed it to him, and he claimed to have stored it in his bedroom chest of drawers. He added that Frances Newton, his girlfriend, frequently cleaned his laundry and had ready access to the revolver. On April 21, Newton made claims on the life insurance policies she had purchased a month earlier. The following day, she was taken into custody and charged with murder. A ballistics expert testified that the murder weapon was the pistol discovered in the abandoned home. Additionally, he stated that the skirt Newton was observed wearing the day of the shootings had nitrate residue from gunpowder. He claimed that fertilizer was yet another potential source of nitrates. Additionally, the state heard testimony from Jeffrey Frelau, Ramona Bell, Alphonse Harrison, Sandra Nelms, and Sterling Newton. Newton entered a not guilty plea. She claimed during her trial that she discovered the gun at her residence and removed it from the property as a precaution. She said that Charlie, a heroin dealer, may have murdered her family while attempting to get her drug-dependent husband to pay back a loan. Newton had already been convicted of forgery, a felony. In December 1985, she was given a 3-year probationary period. Newton was fired from her job for stealing money, according to testimony from her former employer. A jury found Newton guilty of multiple murders in October 1988, and they also handed down a death sentence to her. The conviction and sentence were upheld by the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals in June 1992. She later filed numerous appeals, but they were all rejected by state and federal courts. In an interview while on death row, Newton insisted on her innocence. I felt so anxious and perplexed. My family had already passed away, and now they're accusing me of murder. She spoke. She and her appeals counsel alleged that Ron Mock, her court-appointed trial attorney, provided her with little help. In a recent interview, Mock acknowledged that he was burned out and unenthusiastic about Newton's case at the time of her trial. He claimed that the case was a long shot from the start. Really, I had nothing to work with but Frances' assertion that she didn't do anything. Since 2001, Mock has been prohibited from taking on cases involving capital murder. Newton claimed that the fertilizer was responsible for the nitrate residue on her skirt. Governor Rick Perry accepted the Texas Board of Pardons and Parole's decision to grant Newton a 120-day stay of execution in December 2004 on the day of his scheduled execution, so that the skirt and the .25 caliber pistol could be tested once more. But after the first test, the skirt had been tainted. The pistol passed retesting, proving it to be the murder weapon. Newton's lawyers claimed in their most recent appeals that detectives actually seized 2 or more weapons as evidence and that one of them, not the one Newton stashed in the blue bag, was the murder weapon. The multiple gun theory was dismissed by the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals 1 week before she was put to death. Both the U.S. Supreme Court and the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals turned down the case. The Texas Board of Pardons and Paroles rejected a request for a stay of execution. Newton said in an interview, "I know I did not murder my kids and my family. It's disheartening that no one has been held accountable for that." Newton shook her head in response to the warden's question about whether or not she had a closing speech during her execution. The execution began with the lethal injection. At 6:17 p.m., she was pronounced dead. Even though Frances was the third woman and first black woman to be put to death in the state of Texas, since executions resumed in 1982. The evidence spoke for itself not only once but twice. This case was breathtaking. What woman would kill her children, let alone her husband, for life insurance money? This is ludicrous. A good mother is supposed to nurture, love, and care for her children. Not kill, hurt, and mistreat them. Mothers are natural protectors, or at least most of them are. Also, a wife should always be a support system for her husband. If things were so bad, they would have divorced, and both gone their separate ways. In my opinion, this was not worth killing them. It cost Frances her freedom and her life. And she did not get the life insurance money. But she sure had plenty of time to reflect on her bad actions in the long run. As this is the end of this edition of this video, stay tuned for more on the Crimes N Candyland channel.